Welcome to Piece by Piece, a business podcast by Lumbermens. In today's episode, we talk about developing and leading a sales team. Here's Shawn Montague and Ryan Terpstra. Let's talk sales. You run a sales team. We've got a footprint throughout the Midwest. For those that don't know, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Northern Kentucky, and as if that wasn't enough, we're going to take on Minnesota later on this year.
Minnesota's coming, yeah.
You got to build a team out there, but you've built a team already in the existing footprint. Talk about team building, what you're looking for from your sales staff, just from a high level type of perspective.
First, yes, I've helped construct a team, but there's a lot of people involved in the team's success and making sure that they do the right thing and that they move forward every single day. But to answer your question, like the very first thing that I look for when assembling a team or building a team is chemistry. Chemistry is so underrated. It is so important. There have been so many times that I've interviewed, and this is specific to sales, but could be spread across a lot of teams. But as you asked the question about sales, there are a lot of times, Ryan, that I will interview really great salespeople who have a very good track record of achieving results, and you interview them, and they won't fit into your team, the team that you've built. In fact, recently, we got to the finish line with a candidate, an outside sales candidate. We got to the finish line with them, and we made a job offer, and they counter-offered, and the manner in which they did that, we backed out completely. We had to walk that back because the way that they handled that situation, I couldn't imagine them handling that situation with a customer, number one, like any sort of negotiation with a customer. But I couldn't imagine that chemistry being brought to our group. So even though they were successful, there was just no way we could disrupt the chemistry. These are things that a lot of people don't see or know, right? That go on behind the scenes. But I believe that chemistry is like the first thing that I look for. Beyond that, there are so many different ways to build a great team. I really believe that there's a difference between motivation and discipline. And you know, if anyone from my team ever watches this, they're going to say, "Oh, here he goes again." But I fully subscribe to this principle that the difference between motivation and discipline, it's really easy to be motivated for something, New Year's resolution type things, or goals that you set, whether it's beginning of the year or throughout the year. It's really easy to be motivated to want to do a good job. It's really hard to put in the work.
Yeah.
It's really hard to put in the work. And so I try and identify that characteristic in an interview process. I try and peel that out of whoever I'm talking to, because if we hire disciplined people, we will create the environment to motivate them. There's no doubt in my mind we have a good enough group to create an environment where they will be motivated throughout the course of the year. But we're not with them every day. You know, when they wake up and they turn the key over in the car, I don't know where they go. And our sales leaders don't know where they go every single day. So finding disciplined people who are intrinsically motivated to some degree, but respond well to motivation, that's kind of like one of the first things we look for.
All right, so you've talked about what you're looking for overall with a team and what type of person you'd like to add to your team. Now, of course, we got to be effective with it. So, like, what makes a salesperson or what makes a sales team effective in your eyes?
Yeah, support first and foremost. Like the things that a lot of people don't see are all of the people behind the scenes making things happen. And you know, specific to Lumbermen's, that means purchasing, pricing, administrative things. You know, someone's got to order the shirts, right? Someone's got to order the coffee mugs. So creating a level of support And providing that person with all the tools necessary to be successful allows us to expect great things, right? So that's step one to having an effective team, is giving them the tools they need to be successful. And that doesn't just mean like a laptop and a cell phone and a vehicle. It means people around them to help them achieve their goals. I would also add that urgent people win. And our team, again, we're not perfect, but we respond well, and we teach that, we coach that, we train that with our group. That, you know, if you think about sports for a minute, if you've ever watched a basketball game and you just sit there for 4 or 5 minutes, you can find the most urgent person on the court. You can find them. It's unquestionable who that person is when you see them. You're like, they are diving for every loose ball. They're going to win the 50-50 play. You know, urgency typically wins the battle. Not every time, but it wins the battle. And creating discipline around urgency is something that's a lifelong skill that I don't think people just are born with, creating discipline around urgency. And even when you learn it the first time, or someone reveals that to you the first time, it's hard. It's hard to be urgent. It's hard to respond the right way. And it's hard to create discipline around that where you're doing that every single day. So when you ask, like, what makes a sales team effective? What makes a salesperson effective? Urgency is one of the core principles of that.
Kind of coming off of that, we're talking team. I want just to hear from you a little bit. As a leader, when folks are in charge of a team, maybe it's a team of 1 or 2 people, maybe it's 30. What are some of your biggest challenges when it comes to managing folks that are across the board in terms of location, but also maybe skill set? And I mean, product-wise, we've got quite a full suite of things that they have to keep track of as well. What are some of the challenges, and how do you meet those, and how do you kind of equip those who are also on your team to help with those challenges? What are some of those things that you think about on a day-to-day basis of, like, I got to meet this head on?
I smile because I love this question, because I think it's one of the most underrated skills as a leader. And when someone possesses this skill, you never know it unless they don't possess it. So when someone, and I'll share in a second what it is, but when someone doesn't do this, or they do it incorrectly, you know it, and you're like, man, I don't love that. But when they do it, it's underrated. It just kind of goes under the radar. The ability to make everyone else's number one priority your number one priority, without making them feel like you are rushed, or they're bothering you, or you don't have time for them, right? So
Lip service.
Exactly. And so I think that, you know, when you have 6 or 7 things coming at you, all in the span of 6 or 7 hours, you have to be able to make everyone feel like the things that they're bringing to you are really important. Because I have my priority A and B and C already, and I already have a full schedule that day and a full schedule that week. But if you know, an employee owner calls me and needs something, or a vendor calls me and needs something, or a customer, by the way, calls and needs something, the ability to move their need to my number one priority without making them feel that they're bothering me is such an important trait that we look for.
Let's talk motivation. When it comes to sales, obviously earning money can be motivating. That's a given. But how do you keep a team motivated, especially one that, like, the northern Michigan market is a lot different than the southern Indiana market, and everything is going to be different than Minnesota when we take that on. How do you keep a team motivated that has maybe different personalities, different interests, different challenges?
Yeah.
What's that like as a leader?
I think to answer that question, if you're a leader and you are trying to keep your entire team motivated every day, you got the wrong team, or you haven't selected the right people and you haven't filtered out the wrong people, because the team keeps each other motivated. And so we have selected and developed such a great group of people. Now, don't get me wrong, we put in place things to create these like small bits of motivation, whether it's a financial incentive, a check-in, a monthly one-on-one, a monthly ride-along with a sales manager, a text message from me or a phone call from me that just is checking in, appreciate how hard you work for us. Those are all things that we do. But if I had to do that, and that's all I did, I wouldn't have time for anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So motivating your group starts, in my opinion, with selecting your group.
Do you have an example of your sales team going above and beyond? We talk about a lot of this stuff in theory. How about in practice that you've seen it out in the field? Where do you see the Lumbermen sales team in action when it comes to helping our customers?
Yeah. I spent a lot of time in the field. I spent a lot of time with customers. Ryan, it could be as simple as a particular 6-foot section of railing didn't make it on the truck, didn't get delivered at the right time, and that outside sales rep will drive to the facility, throw the railing section in the back of their truck or vehicle, and drive it up to the customer after hours or on a Saturday or on a Sunday. They'll do those things. I've seen those things happen. But I believe that when you ask, like, when is the Lumbermen sales team the best in action, it's when they are advocating for their customer. It's when they're calling us up, me or a sales leader, and they're saying, hey, this customer is dealing with this issue, either in the market, with a competitor, there's pain here for them, and maybe we didn't even cause that pain. But when they advocate for their customer, we're winning. That is when I really believe that when I go visit customers, the relationship is stronger if they have a sales rep, whether that's an outside rep or an inside customer service, order entry person, or a warehouse person, or a delivery driver for that matter. When our whole group is advocating for the customer, that we're winning.
How does that work? This is something that, we might be getting into the weeds in terms of inner workings of a business, but you've got outside sales. They're the face, they're checking in. You've got an inside sales team as well. How do those two working together help get you to where you need to be when it comes to servicing the customer? I think sometimes that's an underrated aspect of how our service can be effective for our customers.
Yeah, they cannot do it without one another. And so some of the ways that group works together is, we try and have clarity around messaging. The messaging that I deliver to the outside group is the exact same to the inside group. And it's not just me, but we have sales leaders in place and we have mid-level managers in place, and we want clear messaging. We want clear direction so that when an outside salesperson is dealing with something in the field and they need an inside salesperson to help resolve that or support that, they understand that we're singing from the same sheet of music. Mm-hmm. I would also add that our outside sales group does a really good job of thanking the inside group. And that's something that we don't tell them to do it. We don't have to. If they didn't, we probably would tell them. But, and our inside team is so good. They're so good. And there's people that have been here for 20, 25, 30 plus years. They're just as good as they were year 1, year 2, if not better. And then there's people that are starting to come on board right now because the reality is, there's an aging workforce in some positions. And so we do have, new people coming on board. And going back to talent selection, we're trying to make sure we hire the right people.
Thanks for tuning in. In future episodes, we will discuss making shifts in business strategies and recruiting and hiring great people. This has been Piece by Piece, a business podcast by Lumbermens.